blessed to introduce our speakers and our moderator. First, we have Mary Vickers-Koch. Mary is the Dean of the Harris Campus in the Business and Industry Training Services at Central Piedmont Community College, CPCC. We also have Mark Pringle. Mark is the Vice President for Siemens Charlotte Energy Hub. Mark also serves on the Foundation Board for CPCC. And to facilitate the session, we have Tim Burcham. Tim's Vice President of the Kentucky Community Technical College System in Kentucky. Tim and his team at KCTC work hard to provide support to the Bluegrass Economic Advancement Movement. The initiative is there to realize the goal of making the Bluegrass region a premier advanced manufacturing area. Tim participated with the Human Capital Subcommittee of BEAM and assisted with the development of the recommendations that became part of the BEAM report. So if you would, just give a hand.
Good morning. We're honored to be a part of today's session. As he said, I'm the Vice President of the Kentucky Community Technical College System. For those of you who may not be familiar with KCTCS in its entirety, we are the state's largest institution of higher education. We serve 135,000 credit students each year and provide customized workforce solutions for about 5,500 businesses throughout the state. We have about 10,000 full and part-time employees on 73 campuses and have an annual operating budget of about $980 million. Very pleased that we have three members of our leadership team along with me on this trip. Dr. Tony Newberry sitting right here in the front, who is the president of Jefferson Community Technical College in the Louisville area. Back in the center back there is Dr. Julian, the president of Bluegrass Community Technical College in our Lexington area. And back in the back is Dr. Larry Ferguson, our new Vice Chancellor for Economic Development at the statewide headquarters in Versailles. We're very pleased to be participating in today's session about business and education partnerships. We've already heard in the last 24 hours countless examples of how important business and education partnerships can be to a community. We have a supreme example here with the Siemens Corporation and Central Piedmont Community College. Mark and Mary are both going to share their respective stories about this partnership between the two of them, and then at the end we'll take questions from the audience. So I believe we're starting with Mark.
Good morning, folks. It is my pleasure and honor to be here today to share our story. I think it's important I set a little bit of background. Siemens Energy, or the energy piece of Siemens, decided back in 2010 that they were going to create an energy hub, which basically means where they put all the capabilities in North America to make equipment for power generation. We had already had a facility here in Charlotte, but it wasn't just a given that we would expand here. We went through the process that all companies go through, looking at other options compared to it. And I'm very happy to say that at the end of the day, we were able to prove we would come to Charlotte. And what we decided with that decision is we would double the size of the location here in Charlotte and build a whole new manufacturing facility to make gas turbines. So if you know what's going on in the industry and fracking and natural gas availability, you probably already know that gas turbine electricity generation is going to be a very popular solution in the future how we make electricity. So thus Siemens was wanting to do Siemens. Right now we have 1.2 million square feet facility here in Charlotte, all in advanced manufacturing. Our equipment is very large. We added this facility we built just for gas turbines was 400 for that 1.2 million, 400,000. We invested well over $350 million in equipment and people and buildings in the site. And we have the full capabilities to make the steam turbines, which were the traditional ways to make electricity, the gas turbines, and then the electrical generators that they all run to make electricity. So, in fact, we're one of the few sites in the world that had that capability to make all three. Siemens has found great synergy there, and kind of proud to say we can be world competitive in doing manufacturing. Here in the U.S., where we have high wages compared to some of the other options in the world. I mean, how can that be? Well, first we had to invest in the buildings. The story for this gas turbine building is a little interesting. We had to convince upper management and Siemens to go ahead and make the investment, build the plant. And this is the 2010 time period. They were worried about a boom happening in the U.S. market. There's going to be a boom of wanting to buy more gas turbines than anybody could build. We'd be stuck in construction while the boom happens. So they decided the only way to let us go ahead with the expansion is we agreed for a very aggressive plan to build it and get into production, which was from the day we broke ground to the day we shipped the first turbine, it was 13 months. For a 400,000 square foot plant with a lot of heavy machine equipment that had 30-foot deep concrete foundation. Very happy to say we achieved that goal. We used a construction company you all might have heard of called Grade Construction. They did nothing but an excellent job, as I talked to Mr. Gray earlier. And nobody, frankly, I don't believe they thought it could be done. But we did ship the first turbine in 13 months. And now we're fully up to speed, everything running. U.S. market has yet to boom, but we're ready. We are fairly well loaded, and we have now grown. Before the announcement, we were at 730 employees. We're now over 1,600 full-time. Plus, we have a large degree, about 20% contractor business. So that gets to the topic of today's discussion, which is, while it was a challenge to build a building, put equipment in it, and we showed we can meet that challenge, the much bigger challenge is to get the people. And what are we going to do? It's quite daunting to us to say we have to add over 800 people. And these are in advanced manufacturing skills. Of the 800, I would say it roughly splits almost half and half. 400 productive, 400 white-collar engineering or support guys. And so what do we do? One of the reasons we were able to sell them to keep the hub in Charlotte was the great capabilities that existed here to train people. And so we knew that that could be an advantage, and we knew from our previous work with them. But we were very happily surprised at how it could really help us. We went to Central Piedmont Community College and talked about what we needed to do. And very happy to find out it wasn't, well, here's our course curriculum and what you need. It was more, what do you need, what do we need to create? And we sat down together and worked on what we needed specifically. And the very first thing that we needed was how to screen people for the jobs. So we would get thousands and thousands of applicants. And I think between the Workforce Development Board here in Charlotte, they call it Local One Charlotte Works. They jumped in, so you're going to hire 800 people. Let's figure out how to do this. We had this web-based portal we hadn't used yet, and maybe that would work. So we ended up being their inaugural portal, and it worked great. So it took all off of us. They did the original screening through a web-based portal. We could look at it daily and get the statistics of where we're at. And then we did a career readiness certificate screening of the folks. So I definitely recommend that, and I've gone talk to other businesses. If you're hiring, take advantage of these testing curriculums that are using across the country. We added to that blueprint rating, mechanical aptitude, and we said, okay, we won't even begin to talk to people until they pass that test. It was an excellent screen. Unfortunately, the pass rate was like 10%. But we had thousands and thousands of applicants, so we still got plenty of folks. And then we would hire, we would do, I got 50 jobs, I get 2,000 applicants, 200 pass the test, we interview, we get 50. And we did that. That's how we fill our workforce. On the white collar side of things, having the University of North Carolina, Charlotte here, also that college, university has decided to have a focus on energy production. So they created an energy production infrastructure center, which we jumped on board with both feet. It was perfect what we needed. They're saying, I'm taking my mechanical engineers and I'm going to have them have a focus area on energy production, teach them about power plants. We even sent our design engineering managers to help teach about how you design turbines and heat generators. So they became a perfect feeder for us. Also, the other universities in the area, Clemson, South Carolina, the other North Carolina universities were perfect feeders for us. So, in fact, in our case, we found that white-collar folks, we, again, had more candidates than positions, and we really had kind of a pick of the litter of folks. You know, those 400 or so white-collar we added, about 100 we transferred from our headquarter office in Orlando. About 60 came from a plant in Canada that was actually closed to move against Turkey here, and then the rest were hired in through that process. So we sit here now saying, okay, I got all these people, I got them in their initial training, but now I'm at a pretty high critical mass. And some of these skills are hard to get, like machinists, welders, non-destructive examination, and maintenance techs. While we got enough to get us going, we still have a hard time with an ongoing pool. So we decided that we had enough critical mass to launch an apprenticeship approach. So we're a German company. Our brothers in Germany have been doing this for 100 years, but in the U.S., it was not been done for a long time. We looked around. Central Piedmont Community College already had a program called Apprenticeship 2000. So we just said, let's just jump on board with that. And the whole idea of this approach is that the company steps forward and invests in students, and which is somewhat new for the U.S. model. So far, it's worked well. And we take rising seniors in high school, and we just picked our local school, the Olympic High School, where we are our plant, and interviewed them and picked people that said, okay, I want to go on a career path different from the four-year university. I really want to get into manufacturing. We kind of helped them with that decision and said, if you take this path, we'll pay you while you go through it. So it's a great way. You pay their 40-hour-a-week wage, plus they get the training. After 3.5 years, they get an associate's degree in mechatronics. Mechatronics is the latest curriculum for anybody that has automated equipment. It doesn't matter what that equipment is doing. You need to understand how the computer controls work and how the mechanics work. And then they know how to run our tools. You know, our equipment weighs 300 to 600 tons when it's up. We're working on gigantic forgings that are $200,000 is a low end. So if we make a machine here, it's not a trivial topic. So we want to make sure our machinists are trained before we put them there. So I'm happy to report that now in 2014, 4 years since the announcement, and 3 years really into production, we're meeting our productivity goals. We're loaded, not yet to the what we designed the plant to be, but we're growing to be there. And I think everybody at Siemens would consider it a success, what we did with our expansion. And I really believe it would not have been possible without the partnership that we had in the city, most predominantly with Central Piedmont Community College. I very much feel that in Charlotte, the collaboration that we get here is an advantage. There's a number of other boards that we get together and talk about. Just for energy, we have a thing called Energy for Carolinas that I'm a member of as well, where it's all the energy companies coming together and trading problems with training or other things, and how can we help each other. All those things help us in Siemens. And I think I would hope that model would be picked and used in your area as well. This slide here shows the people aspect. You know, one of the questions they ask is, well, why would Siemens come to a high-dollar area like the U.S. and do all this investment? Why wouldn't they go to Mexico or China? Well, they are in those countries, but the biggest power user in the world is still the United States. They wanted to have a big presence here, but still we have to be globally competitive. And that bar chart at the bottom is showing how the hours per generator have gone down. So we've taken a 30% reduction in the hours it takes us to build one of the big pieces of equipment. And that's from having employees that are trained, embracing lean manufacturing to as much as we possibly can, and designing our product for cost. Well, I'm happy to say we export right around $400 million a year of our product outside the United States being manufactured in Charlotte. So that's showing we can be competitive. And we wouldn't be loaded with equipment to build otherwise. But I think it's all because we've found ways to get people and people trained for the job. So what I'd like to do now is, that's a big high-level picture of what we've been doing. I'd like to transition over to Mary Vickers-Koch, who's the Dean of the Harris campus for Central Piedmont Community College, and let her get into a little more specifics of what they've done to prepare to train folks for the workforce. Thank you.
And I'd like to extend a warm welcome to Charlotte. I am one of those rare birds called a native. I was born and raised here, and so it's particularly an honor to have come from other chambers and to come and visit Charlotte. So today I would like to talk about how we're trying to help create a talent pipeline. And first I'll talk in a broad sense, and then more specifically about Siemens, and have a video of the beautiful factory on that too. So just a little background on what we say CPCC, it's a Piedmont Community College. Our vision is to be the national leader in workforce development. We take that very seriously, which means that we work with companies that understand the skills and competencies needed. We have 70,000 students, 40% of that are for credit, 40% are the not for credit continuing ed, and 20% are your basic skills and GED. And we serve about 300 companies, not as big as Siemens, a year, both in contract and customer training. So how are we dealing with the middle skills gap, or the training gap, as it's sometimes called? I know in Kentucky, your governor has a skills initiative. The president and CEO of Siemens USA, Mark Piedmont, says that it's not really a skills gap, but it's a training gap. And he explained to us in a deliberate address he made in March that it is because companies aren't investing in training, and because companies need to work more with community colleges, which is a powerful statement from a man who is the CEO and the president of Siemens, Eric Spiegel. You can find information about what he says all over Google, if you Google it. So that's the context of it. In terms of what we say our skills initiative is at Central Piedmont Community College, there are 4 things. And the first one is to define the job and competencies of the future. And this is extraordinarily time-consuming and complex because it involves looking at labor analytics. Burning glass happens to be the software that we use, but there are plenty of others. There is Department of Labor information to determine what jobs are being hired right now, and then try to predict what's going to be in the next 5 years, what's going to be needed. We work closely with the companies in terms of their subject matter experts, and seeing what they've hired now and what their attrition rate will be and what they'll use. So we've spent quite an investment of time and funds in defining those competencies, particularly in the energy industry, most specifically manufacturing, and secondly in the information technologies, because that's a great demand in the Charlotte area. So in response to that, we build certificates that are needed. Some response we've had lately is in the welding areas and pipe fitting, those kinds of things where businesses said that they need that more. Then apprenticeship Charlotte, we were going to talk a little more about apprenticeships. I understand some of you are interested in that. There's a great organization in Charlotte called Apprenticeship 2000. The companies of German heritage started that 12 years ago. Central Piedmont Community College has been their academic partner for the 12 years. They, however, are at their limit. They don't want to add new people. The last one's ever Siemens, so I don't know what that means. But so Siemens was in, so how do we serve other companies who would like to do apprenticeships? We're using the great model that Apprenticeship 2000 has started, and we have Apprenticeship Charlotte. We now have 5 companies involved in that and 20 apprentices. We're proud that 2 of the 5 are American companies, because that's a new road for American companies. But we feel that they're seeing that to develop their talent pipeline, it's worth the investment in apprenticeships. And I think, and I hear this all the time, well, if Siemens is doing it, it's something we need to look into. Siemens is quite a role model in the community. The other is the link with the K-12 system. I know that was a question that was in the earlier session. We have a fantastic superintendent right now, and he believes in workforce development at a very high level, realizing that the the whole STEM factor is so important in workforce development. And he is very willing to promote that university might not be the answer for 100% of the students in Charlotte school system, that it might be technology and that the community colleges can be an answer to that. So our college and worked with the CMS Charlotte school system and developed a workforce development plan, and it shows how things can articulate different courses. We have high schools on the campuses at Piedmont, 3 high schools, and all of them end up going to college or university thus far. So those are the 4 things that we think are the most important for the skills initiative in the Charlotte area. Instead of me talking about it in great detail, I do have a video to show you. It was shot by Piedmont Community College Television. All of it was shot at Siemens, just about, one of the high schools. So you get to see the beautiful facility that Siemens has here. And you will hear from a fantastic apprentice named Hope Johnson, who's kind of famous in her own right. And when you see her speak, you'll understand why. And so there's also the link to the K-12 system and talking about some of the training going on. So we'll move to that video now. And I think our experts in the back are going to cue that video on.
Science, technology, engineering, and math means lots of things.
The glaring misconceptions are everybody needs to go and get a 4-year university degree. And statistically, we know that's not true.
We got to help them connect the dot. They got to see what's in it for me. And the way that we're able to do that is actually by creating a content.
The key is how Siemens works with the apprentices. And they have to select the apprentices, and the way they do that is they let them be an intern for the summer before they actually start. And the grade rises to the top, and the training manager said you can tell within a week who's going to be a good apprentice. And they are, as Mark said, seniors in high school. So they have the ability to take college-level courses. So they go to college and they get college credit and they get the high school credit also. And the sad thing about not being able to see it is to see how beautiful the Siemens facility is. And I think it's something that's a tour that people are just incredible. People are wowed when they see it because of the 600 tons worth of product that gets lifted and moved around and built. So in terms of how did we partner with Siemens, as Mark said, we worked with Siemens for a decade, but the really big one was when the announcement was made to move to the gas turbines. And so Jeff Edge, who was on the panel right before from the chamber, mentioned that there is a program in North Carolina called a customized training program. And the customized training is funded by the General Assembly of North Carolina to promote economic development. And it's particularly for manufacturing companies, although they've expanded their scope of late, which is a good thing, to IT and some other areas. And so Siemens was eligible for some substantial training dollars in that. I was at a conference in California, Workforce Development Conference, and the chief economic development person for the San Diego area stood up. And he was almost fussing about North Carolina and their economic incentive program and training and how much it worked in California, which I thought was an interesting comment. Others have come, Tennessee has come to see how the customized training is done. But it is funded by the North Carolina General Assembly, but it is administered by the individual colleges. So it's a great idea of the funding is on the state level, but the administration is at the college level on that. And you probably know that President Obama in his State of the Union address in 2012 acknowledged Siemens and Central Piedmont Community College, and they had an employee from Siemens sitting next to Mrs. Obama. And a little backstory, and maybe you know it, maybe you don't, is she was thrilled when she said, "I don't have anything to wear." So people from Siemens donated money and took her out shopping and bought her a black suit that she could wear the First Lady on that. So, and Siemens is a great story in terms of supporting their employees. So in terms of what would I say are the 5 critical steps in forming a partnership like the one that we have with Siemens? The first is working with the subject matter experts. As Mark said, when they started gas turbines, they didn't have that expertise in this plant. They had to build it and had to hire people. So we went out and found the right subject matter experts throughout Siemens, not always in Charlotte, often they were, and figured out what people would need to know and define those competencies. So there was a lot of work before we could ever get to the training itself. And we used those competencies for the assessment criteria that Mark referenced, the portal that Charlotte Work, which is our Workforce Development Board, designed to get, I think, close to 9,000 people have gone through that portal. And so, but defining those competencies allowed them to know what assessments to use. And then, of course, by defining those competencies, we build the training. We don't usually do training for crane operators who are lifting 600 tons of material, but we have to develop that. So that's how we, based on what competencies people said, we were responsive to that. So we were guided by a mutually developed project plan, and at the beginning of the project, for the first 2 years, we met every single Friday with the training manager and people on my team, a broad perspective, so that we know whatever problems might come up. And if you meet monthly, things happen. If you meet weekly, you can act in real time. So we developed a project plan, we stuck to it, and to spend close to $1 million a year in training, you have to have a project plan. And so very flexible training. You can see that we've offered 1,307 classes to date. We've trained over 2,100 people, and that means some people who were in pre-employment. So it's not the number of employees that you have. Don't panic yet. You got 2,000. And we a total of 14,369 hours of training since September 2010 through May on that. And then finally, the use of all college resources. We are a state-supported institution. That means occasionally you have some bureaucratic kinds of things that happen. And what we did was involve all of the college to understand how big this Siemens project was and how important it was. And so the training manager, we organized a tour for all the bookkeepers and all the people who have to process all of the funding and the audit requirements. And of course they were wowed when they saw how big it was. Probably most of them had not been in a manufacturing facility. But that got the whole college on board. And I think we probably offered 2. One was to executive management and one was to the people who sit behind the desk most of the time. So that was extremely important in being a partner. It's not just the continuing ed at the side of the house, it's the entire college. So the return on investment in terms of what Siemens has contributed to the community is enormous. It's the leadership, they're there at all of the meetings about energy, all of the meetings about how Charlotte wants to be an energy hub, about how to train workforce, and a lot of that is through Mark's generous use of time. I think he probably doesn't sleep to do his job and do that too. The 1,600 jobs, the new hires, I would include part-time in there in terms of 950. They are highly paid. Other companies complain, but you know the other companies have to step up and offer something that is similar, plus the apprenticeship. That apprenticeship has spread like wildfire in terms of parents talking about Siemens and about the opportunity to get an education and have a job when they finish, when they're successful at that. And then, of course, the investment in training and development. Everybody from the CEO of Siemens USA Mark, all of his team talking about training investment, people listen and they respond to that. So it's our commitment at Central Piedmont Community College to be responsive, to customize. We're not going to offer something off the shelf. We will invest in whatever it takes to do the customized. And believe me, we don't always get reimbursed for that through the state. And then the partnerships are the key to coming back to our vision to be the national leader in workforce development. If we can understand what businesses need, then we can develop training programs or curriculum or credit programs to respond to what businesses need. So that's our commitment, and we're grateful to Mark and his great team at Siemens to helping us keep that commitment. So thank you.
So we've heard some really important information about partnerships between educational institutions and business. So we're going to open it for questions from the audience. Anyone have a question to get us started? Make your way to the microphone.
Good morning. My name is Billy Peevler, and my organization is the workforce development arm of Commerce Lexington. So when you were building this partnership to bring on your manufacturing production team members, what was the perception of the parents? And other than, it's a high-paying job, we're providing paid education while you're training, what's the perception of manufacturing in this area, and was it challenging to change the perception of those in the region and their parents to build that pipeline for your manufacturing program?
That's a very interesting story. And as I assume you're referring to the apprenticeship program. And the truth is, the very first year, we decided to do it. We went to Olympic High School and interviewed folks. We got a number of kids said they were interested. We did have follow-up because once their parents found out about it, they said, well, we want you in a 4-year university program. We don't want you on that program. So we were kind of surprised at first and said, okay, we couldn't find a lot of people that were interested, but we got enough to still started out with 6. But it was amazing. And after we did the first one, and people understood how it really worked and what the paying wages were for these jobs, and then you actually got paid while you got trained. The next time, we had more people than we could handle. I was kidding to Pam, we used to be our training person, they'd bring them into our place for their final interview, and their parents come with them, and it got to the point they were all worried about who was going to get picked, whether their kid got picked. It went completely changed from hard to find people, but now they're way in line, and it's a big deal for them to get picked if you want them. So I think it's a matter of communication, marketing, and getting the word out to everybody. Manufacturing jobs are great jobs. They're great paying, and in our case, we have a lot of equipment that's very deep in the ground. We're not going anywhere, so that's a lot of longevity.
Traditionally, in the Charlotte area, manufacturing was textiles and furniture. So that was not high paying, and sometimes in textiles, it maybe wasn't as clean as what you got at Siemens. So Siemens has been the role model, and I think people are understanding. It's amazing how you bring a group of parents to a manufacturing facility, and they see it, their eyes are open. So to marketing.
My name is Kim Minke. I'm with Toyota in Kentucky. Thank you for sharing, this marvelous benchmark of a model. Has there been any consideration for duplicating this to other parts of the state and for other manufacturers? And has there been consideration of that? And how would you visualize that? Duplicating that from a community college perspective to be able to take this great model and duplicate it without lots of adjustments and things like that, where you could have a state-of-the-art model across the state.
I'll speak for Siemens. The good news, Siemens, as you know, is a gigantic company. There's over 60,000 employees just in but all the businesses have, they see all the notoriety we're getting. We've talked now. Siemens is going to use the model at all their locations that they do expansions at. And in the U.S. So we've already talked with them, we've shared how we did it, and they're reaching out and saying, okay, I want to get more than just Charlotte where we've done it. So they've already made the commitment to do that. We've also met a lot of other communities that have come in and met with us to understand what we did and are looking to do similar things. And I think it's just each specific location probably has their own specific issues, so you might not want to do exactly the same, but you learn. We're just happy to help you. We did it on the street.
I think that the thing that people have come to us to learn is the defining the competencies. Because you really can't say to a startup, so what training do you need? You have to start with what are those competencies. And that is a skill base in and of itself to learn how to define those competencies. And so we certainly have been asked to present the national conferences and state conferences that we have. And we're happy to share whatever is happening. It's a community college, part of the community, and very happy to share.
Michael Gritton from Kentuckiana Works, the analog in Louisville to Charlotte Works. I want to thank Mark. I was here just a couple months ago with the U.S. Conference of Mayors Workforce Development Council. We came out and did a plant tour. It was totally incredible. All the things you're saying are true, so thanks for the hospitality on that. I had a specific question about the way the state money works to help the community college help a company like Siemens. Obviously, Tim knows from our community college system level, we have a state funding stream that's called WINS dollars that the community college can use to help companies who are looking for training. And I think it typically works, the state can pay 2/3 of that training cost, but the company typically has to kick in the other third. And I didn't know how in the details of how your state money, that $4 or $5 million, did Siemens have to kick in anything, or is that really a place where the state says we'll invest the whole thing as long as we can see the back end? I wonder if that's a place where North Carolina is doing something different and better than what we may be offering at Kentucky.
Is doing something different.
Okay.
The restrictions are on the level of employees, and so it has to be people directly associated with production. But that's a very broad definition because a supervisor of an hourly worker is directly contributing. And they've been very liberal in their response to things too. Engineers are specifically working on designing a process that the hourly worker will work on, that we can include that in the training. So I think it is a learning for that. There are some things that Siemens would like and the state will not cover it, and so Siemens pays out of their own pocket, what we call self-supporting on-time training.
So I can tell you, we did a lot of training that we paid for ourselves in parallel to this training. So, but to my knowledge, there was no requirement to keep track of that. So that wasn't even the approach. The approach was to say, hey, as part of the incentives to do the expansion here in Charlotte, we got this much training funded by the state, and then we wanted to make the most of it. So we had our trained people work to make the most of it. Again, we're very happy with it.
True. Thank you.
Hi, Robert Riggs. I'm on the board of the Institute for Aerospace Education, which is based in Frankfurt. And currently, Kentucky has more high schools teaching aviation as a subject matter at the high school level than any state in the nation. And we've recognized that what the students are studying in high school not only related to aviation, but could be transferred into advanced manufacturing. We're just trying to figure out what other syllabus we need to add to the training program to make the transition from high school into advanced manufacturing education a smooth transition that the kids will look forward to looking at as a career.
That's interesting. What advanced manufacturing needs in the way of skills, as I talked about the machinists, that's the thing that's hardest to find. And I think we really found on this curriculum of mechatronics. And so I recommend that. If we were looking at that, CPCC is an expert. We actually sent CPCC instructors to Berlin to get certified to teach it. So they can teach it to us now, they can teach it to anybody. I think we're going to become a regional head for the United States. But that's the thing that modern advanced manufacturing needs. They don't have to have a 4-year degree, but they have to have some understanding of all this automated equipment. So that's a key skill. And high school kids can learn that skill. 2-year type of investment. Also, welding. So that is more of a craftsman type thing. But there's a lot of need in the manufacturing, even if the system is completely automated. You need to understand the science of what's trying to happen when you're doing well. So you need to be able to teach them in that. In our case, we're making gas turbines that all have high nickel alloy, high temperature stuff, and it's one of the hardest things in the world. So that's why it's real important that we find good folks that understand how this should work. I'd say probably next, non-destructive examination. So the quality aspect of how do you inspect your parts to make sure they're good. The technologies are great that are coming out there, but they're all kind of advanced, and then the training and how to use them, so advanced thin current, phase array, ultrasonic technology. The science in of itself, so something to do with the training. And then probably the hand skill type of work. What we found is that the general high school education, it wasn't quite enough. Mechanical aptitude and blueprint things such as that. And so when I told you about the screening test, we did a lot of people fell out. That would be something that would probably work on.
And the one thing that we've been fortunate about for the past 4 years in North Carolina is dual credit between the high school and the community college. So you can have some of those programs in the high school, and they still get high school credit, plus they get community college credit. There are a few who are graduating and only from high school and only need a semester more, and they'll have an associate's degree. So that has been a tremendous boom in North Carolina when you quit competing with the K-12 and community colleges.
Just as a side note, KCTCS does have electronics in Bowling Green in partnership with Siemens. Question over here.
Hi, yes, Dave Elson from Lexington with the Y in Lexington. And it seems like a lot of the programs, internships and so on, are given to the best and the brightest, the stars, the people who have the opportunity. So my question to you guys is, this seems like a tremendous opportunity to give to somebody who needs a helping hand. Maybe they haven't had that opportunity. So is there any part of the program dedicated to those kids?
There is, and it's with that career readiness certificate that Mark was talking about. We offer courses to help people train for that, because if you can't pass that, it's the basic reading, writing, and locating information. Most of them can do that, but the ones that need the mechanical aptitude and also blueprint reading, and even people who have blueprint reading, it was just difficult for them to do it the Siemens way. So we teach that at a very, very nominal cost. It's basically our cost. And particularly when Siemens was in a heavy hiring mode, we had a lot of people come through that. And some of them were not the kids out of high school. They were from another company, but maybe not as high tech as Siemens. And so they needed to increase their skills, or they hadn't taken a test for 20 years. We can do increments, so we prefer computer. So that's part of it, to help them be able to take those tests. And we kept records, and many of them got the job at Siemens. But we did that on our end. Some of the training the state will pay for those career readiness certificates. They'll pay to take the test, but we will prep them and do it for, I think it's $30.
Well, thank you for doing that.
Hello, my name is Stuart Benson. I taught machine shop for 28 years. I used to be a tool and die maker. I served my apprenticeship program at General Electric. And one of our problems is I put over 500 kids in jobs. In our greater Louisville area, there's 260 machine shops. And we have apprenticeship schools that the employers pay for the school, and they get their skills on the job. The problem in our school system in Jefferson County is they don't really believe that vocational education is important, and they've almost eliminated it. They got 7-period days. We used to co-op students. We had juniors in the morning and seniors in the afternoon, and they get to find out, no matter how smart a person is, if they don't enjoy doing close tolerance work, you're wasting your time training somebody. So they need some chance to get experience of what's going on in the real world. And I'm looking forward to going to your all's place today, because we need to open the eyes of people around our community and say, hey, if you can't build something, you're not going to create wealth. and we need skilled labor.
We're very fortunate that the new school superintendent believes in that very much. In the past, some of the superintendents kind of saw universities as the way for everybody.
Couldn't agree with you more, sir. We need to
I'd just like to respond to that. In Louisville, the Ford Next Generation Learning Program did exactly that. I run a manufacturing business. We've had a high school apprentice program for 3 years where kids are coming after noon every day. So we are doing some of that stuff. And if you see Donna Hargens and all the good work she's doing to support this, it's really, we're making a lot of progress.
Yeah, I would like to put a plug in for our Commonwealth as well on an initiative called Kentucky FAME. It's a Federation for Advanced Manufacturing Education that is very active in the Central Kentucky, in the Lexington region, and in the Louisville region. And people are going and moving forward, so there's a lot of positive going on in our Commonwealth. And KCTCS, thank you, because you have been a good partner in this initiative.
I think we're at the end here. On the video, I'm going to ask the staff if maybe we can send a link out. I do think you would want to see that video. I apologize for not being able to be shown, but we'll send you a link so you can see it. Let's give our for all of our speakers, a little gift of spirits from the conception. And with your name. Thank you all very much.